What's up, guys? Been a minute with the season coming to a close, but it appears we still got some NFL drama, and this story is something that happened over a decade ago and is now being rehashed. It involves former Miami Dolphins lineman Jonathan Martin, Richie Incognito, Mike Pouncey, and John Jerry during the Miami Dolphins Bullygate scandal that dropped in 2013. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of the gist on that story because it's been so long and there might be many of you who simply just haven't heard what happened during that time. Basically, in 2013, Jonathan Martin, an offensive lineman for the Miami Dolphins in his second year in the league, left the team alleging harassment and bullying by his teammates, notably Richie Incognito. The NFL launched an investigation led by Ted Wells, whose 2014 report confirmed that Incognito, along with teammates Mike Pouncey and John Jerry, engaged in a pattern of harassment, including racial slurs and threats, contributing to Martin's mental health struggles. Richie Incognito was suspended, and the scandal dubbed Bullygate sparked widespread debate about locker room culture and hazing in the NFL. However, years later, in a new report, Jonathan Martin admitted that he never believed he was bullied, claiming that the narrative was driven by his parents, though the Wells report's findings of harassment remain documented. Okay, so what led to this was a series of events over the last few days. Last week, ESPN wrote an article about Jonathan Martin and his life after NFL retirement and how he has found a new focus with Bitcoin. This piece was done as Martin was giving a TED Talk about Bitcoin in a theater in Wilmington, Delaware. However, it was what he revealed in his interview with ESPN that really caught the eye of many. Martin admitted that he never really believed for a second that he was being bullied by his former teammates Richie Incognito and others, stating he's been trying to correct this narrative for years. According to this article, it says that Martin is blaming his parents for the situation becoming as widely known as it is today. He's quoted as saying, "I had a situation with my teammates that I wasn't super happy about, but my mother had her own read on the situation. I hadn't even told my coaches, hadn't told anyone, and suddenly it's on ESPN, right? I didn't believe any of the stances I was taking, right? Where I'm this victim. I wasn't a victim, right? My mother, maybe in her mind, I can't read her mind, she thought she was doing the right thing." Okay, so that's pretty crazy. He's saying all this stuff now after a decade later. And it could be true that his mother was being protective and just trying to save her son from a bad situation with the Miami Dolphins. This is really the first time Jonathan has spoken on this matter, so it does really come as a shock that he's saying all this. Anyways, Richie saw that tweet that reported this news and he responded defending himself as he tweeted, "He couldn't cut it in the NFL, so he quit and his mom blamed me. Legacy media pushed this narrative long and far. Too bad it was all a lie. They lied to protect his money. He quit. The team had every right to claw back that money. His mom started the bullying narrative with ESPN, Adam Schefter, so that the Dolphins wouldn't go after his signing bonus." And then Richie just started going off on some media heads like Adam Schefter and Mike Florio after they broke this story themselves. Schefter quote tweeted the ESPN article and highlighted the excerpt where Martin said he didn't believe he was bullied, and that made Richie Incognito reply back with, "Notable excerpt, you try to ruin my life over this BS." And then he responded to Mike Florio's PFT tweet saying, "You try to ruin my career over a lie." A decade later, Jonathan Martin admits he was never bullied. His mother pushed this narrative of bullying to the media. Jonathan Martin never believed in the stance his camp was taking during the Ted Wells investigation. The NFL and the media ran with this false narrative, ruined careers, and moved on. Okay, so there's quite a bit to unpack here, but first off, I gotta keep it a buck. I understand Jonathan said what he said in that ESPN interview, however, we do have to address the voice message Richie Incognito left for him, because some, if not most, would say what was in the excerpt of this message would constitute as bullying. Anyways, this is what Richie left for his teammate Jonathan Martin. "Hey, what's up, you half ninja piece of ish? I saw you on Twitter. You've been training 10 weeks. I'll ish in your effing mouth. I'm gonna slap your effing mouth. I'm gonna slap your real mother across the face. Ha ha ha. F you. You're still a rookie. I'll kill you." Okay, so I've said a lot of effed up things to friends in a joking manner, and I'm sure some of you have also. It's what happens when guys are around other guys, hence locker room talk. But this one here just takes a cake. Just from an outsider's perspective, like, not many people reading this are going to think Richie is innocent and that this wasn't a form of bullying. But depending on your friends group, or in this case the culture in that locker room, it could be interpreted differently. NFL locker rooms are pretty unforgiving, and a lot of bullying and hazing does go on inside those places that would surely be frowned upon in the outside world. And I want you to hear from a couple people who are inside those locker rooms and listen to their take about the culture inside these places, and you can kind of get a sense that at that time in 2013, they understood what the code and culture was inside those rooms. No one is saying it's right, but it is what it is. Obviously, this was over a decade ago, and times are much different now, so a lot has changed. Anyways, have a listen here.
Michael, I think most people watch that interview and they listen to it and they say, oh, it's both sides. That's just the way things go on in the NFL locker room, is it?
Well, be honest with you, yeah. I think the NFL locker room, as hard as it is to listen, and if you've never been in a locker room, to what Richie Incognito said and go, I'm offended, he's a racist. But when you're in that locker room, it's a culture unto itself. I had so many jokes. That's why I didn't fix my teeth. I could take any gap tooth joke you want to throw at me. I can take anything because that was the culture of it. And I missed that part about the locker room because that was the brotherhood of it. And as a subculture to that culture, which is an offensive lineman, these guys are a whole different level of offensiveness, of the way that they handle and deal with each other. And being in that locker room, I get it and I understand it. Now, the use of the derogatory term by Richie Incognito, absolutely unnecessary. If I were in the locker room and heard him do it, would I have checked him immediately? Absolutely. But you learn in that locker room as a player from your first day, people only get away with you what you allow them to. And you gotta check things from the beginning. And if you don't, you'll have a situation like you had in Miami.
This debate that's going on with the Miami Dolphin thing about bullying and racial slurs. Hey, Ernie, in a locker room and when I'm with my friends, we use racial slurs. What we say in the locker room, and it should always stay in the locker room, I might add that also. But the language we use, first, sometimes it's homophobic, sometimes it's sexist, and a lot of times it's racist. We do that when we're joking with our teammates, and it's nothing personal.
Understood.
But this national debate that's going on right now, it makes me uncomfortable that regular people try to act like they have the courage of to play pro sports. They don't have that.
Okay, so you heard two guys who are at the top in their profession talking about what the culture was and is like in those locker rooms. Again, this was over 10 years ago, so I'm just trying to add some nuance to what was said. But then you also have to look at what Richie Incognito's teammates said about him as they pretty much defended him.
Yeah, Richie's definitely not that type of guy. Richie's a guy, if you had to get a guy to pick your back, I'd pick Richie. Richie be first for a couple guys, so I don't think what people are saying about him is true. But like I said, I don't want to get into it. Oh yeah, anytime you lose a good player, he's been to the Pro Bowl and things like that, it's always a kind of a hit. It's like losing a guy to injury, but it is what it is.
What about the locker room? Is that something that should stay in the locker room? Is there some things that shouldn't be let out?
I believe so. It's I mean, most people want to understand his culture. Most people don't put themselves through pain like we do, so I don't think it's fair for an everyday person to judge what goes on in this atmosphere.
I mean, for all I know, he was a good guy. And you know, I thought Rich was good. The guy too. I don't know personally. You know, their relationship. I mean, when you go to the team, sometimes you're not, you know, friends with everybody on the team. You know what I'm saying? But I'm not sure how the relationship was. I know, you know, me and the corners, you know, we were all great, and the guys I see on defense. But you know, of course, I'm not sure how that really went down, man.
You're one of the veteran leaders of this team. Did you feel like it was a healthy locker room? Do you feel like things ever got over the top?
I've been here for quite a while. The locker room has been fine as far as I'm concerned. But then again, you know, you're talking about me. I can't speak for anybody else. And this situation again is it being investigated by NFL. And I'm really, you know, that's not something I'm confident.
It was pretty shocking because of the racial slurs that he used in the voicemail, but this was the culture his teammates had allowed for Richie. Anyways, with that said, guys, what do you think about this story with Jonathan Martin coming out after a decade later? Do you think Richie's still culpable for what happened, or was this simply a story of a mother trying to protect her kid?